Wow, I cannot believe what I've just witnessed. New Zealand are in the T20 World Cup final and they have blown away South Africa thanks to Finn Allen. This is definitely the innings of the tournament, maybe the best ever innings in a World Cup T20 competition. Comment below if you can think of a better innings. It's the fastest century in a T20 World Cup. It's also the fastest T20 century against a full member nation. Just an absolute freak performance. If you're a New Zealand fan, did you expect a performance quite like this from Finn Allen against a bowling attack of this quality? He's definitely scored some rapid hundreds before. New Zealand will either play India or England in the final. Comment down below who you think they'll be facing in the final. And if you're a KKR fan watching this, you must be very excited. The Kolkata Knight Riders just acquired him for what will be his first IPL season of his career. I was not expecting that result at all. I really highly rated that South African team. They have a batting lineup packed with quality, with power and players who can accumulate and players who can finish off in innings. Their bowling stocks are also very strong. If they had any weaknesses, it would maybe be they're a little light on quality spin options. But South Africa choking again. They really looked like one of the best teams in the competition before this match. Certainly were in better form than New Zealand going into this match. South Africa were also the only undefeated team in the World Cup going into the semi-final, and they beat India pretty comprehensively. New Zealand pretty well scraped into this semi-final. They only won one of their 3 games in the Super 8, although that was in part due to a rained-out match against Pakistan. Before this match, they had only beaten one top 8 opposition in Sri Lanka in this whole World Cup. They had already played South Africa in this tournament, and they were beating really comfortably in that game. That victory would have given South Africa a psychological edge in this match, but I'm sure New Zealand would have had some lessons learned from that defeat that they applied in this game. South Africa retained the same lineup that they put out in their Super 8 game against the West Indies. They gave their bowlers, including Marco Jansen, Kagiso Rabada and Keshav Maharaj, a rest in their last Super 8 game against Zimbabwe. New Zealand made one change from their loss against England. Ish Sodhi made way for Jimmy Neesham. New Zealand opting for more seam as they moved to Indian conditions versus the slower, more spin-friendly conditions in Sri Lanka. New Zealand won the toss and elected to field first, as most teams do in the late time slot in India, and this proved to be a very important toss to win in the end. New Zealand opened the bowling with Matt Henry and Cole McConchie. They had previously used McConchie with great success in the power play against Sri Lanka and had tried it once again. And it also once again proved to be a great decision as he dismissed Quinton de Kock and Ryan Rickleton in successive balls in his first and only over of the match, talking about making an impact. This in turn meant Markram couldn't play with the freedom and aggression as he had usually done with success throughout the tournament. But this is a South African team that has proven they can dig themselves out of trouble, which they did against India. Markram and Brevis saw them to the end of the power play at a respectable 2 for 48. After the power play, New Zealand brought on spin at both ends in Santner and Ravindra continued to impress with the ball, dismissing Aidan Markram after Santner built up some pressure from the other end. Ravindra also dismissed the dangerous David Miller before the halfway point. South Africa were at 4 for 77 after 10 overs. New Zealand were in a real position of strength when Doyle Brevis chipped one to cover off Jimmy Neesham, now 5 for 77 over just over 10 overs. It was now up to Stubbs and Jansen to rebuild the innings, and they batted steadily right up to the 16th over, with South Africa on 5 for 113 going at just 7 runs and over. If South Africa failed to launch now, their tournament would be in serious danger. And launch is what they did. 2 huge overs off Neesham and Henry, which went for a total of 37 runs. Jansen scoring the bulk of the runs, now on 40 off 24. And what a player he is. So dangerous both with the bat and the ball. He's got to be one of the most dangerous all-rounders in white ball cricket. South Africa now at 150 with 2 overs left. 180 looked on the cards. Then Lockie Ferguson came in and bowled the dangerous Tristan Stubbs with a great Yorker from around the wicket, as is his signature. He was New Zealand's best bowler of the innings up to that point. But then Jansen brought up his 50 in style with back-to-back sixes at the end of the over. 180 was still on the cards. But then Matt Henry put on a masterclass in death bowling. He hit his Yorker length perfectly, including a beautiful slow ball Yorker to dismiss Corbin Bosch. Only 6 came off the last over and New Zealand needed just 170 to win. South Africa had a defendable target in the end, but they can't help but feel they were a little light on runs. But perhaps what was most worrying is that the dew had already started to play a role in the game late in South Africa's innings. If South Africa were to stand any chance in that match, they would need to remove the openers early, who would be going hard from ball 1. New Zealand cruised to none for 19 off their first 2 overs without taking any significant risk. They were already ahead of the run rate at this point, and by the 3rd over, the dominance had already begun. A massive 6 from Finn Allen, then a 6 and a 4 from Tim Seifert, including a ridiculous scoop. 18 runs off the over, and the required rate already below 8. Allen and Seifert were then putting on a masterclass in power play batting, throwing caution to the wind. The 50 was brought up in 4.2 overs. They finished the power play off in style with a 22-run over off Corbin Bosch, all off the bat from Finn Allen, who was on a ridiculous 43 off 15 at that point. 84 runs off the power play, and they had all but booked a spot in the final, with just 86 needed off 82 balls at this point. Only a spectacular batting collapse could have prevented them from making the final, and with a required rate of just 6.14 runs per over, there was no need to play any silly shots. The first wicket fell at 117 off 9.1 overs. The game was settled, but Finn Allen had his eyes on bigger things, an unlikely 100. At this point he was on 58 off 23. At 11.3 overs, New Zealand needed just 32 runs to win. Finn Allen on strike and on 65. He then timed the absolute pants off a flick off his hip off Maharaj for 4, and then hit a short arm pull that somehow went for 6. He was timing the ball so well at this stage. He then retained the strike off the next over. Surely he couldn't do it, could he? He couldn't get a ridiculous 100 at this point. 24 runs to win. Then ramp for 4, then a scoop for 4. He reached 84 by his 30th ball. Then Jansen drops short, a pull shot for a massive 6. Then he hoiked one that was full of a length over straight mid-wicket for 6. 96 off 32 balls. In came the fielders. Finn Allen then sealed an extraordinary victory and an even more extraordinary 100 by slapping a full wide ball over cover for 4. 100 off 33 balls, a new World Cup record. 9 fours and 8 sixes. Over half the balls he faced went to the boundary, and just 4 dot balls in the entire innings. So New Zealand get revenge over South Africa, and South Africa choked again in the semi-final. New Zealand have made an unlikely World Cup final, despite not being in the best of their form throughout the tournament. Whoever plays them in the final, whether that is India or England, will be very wary of Finn Allen now, and the New Zealand bowlers were also excellent in this match, after perhaps a disappointing effort against England. Anyway, comment your thoughts on the match below. I will be covering the India versus England match on the channel. It should be a great game of cricket. If you do want to catch my recap for that, do hit that subscribe button, and be sure to like the video and comment your thoughts on the match, and I'll catch you in the next one.